Gothic. When I say that, you might think of Gothic fashion like this, or Gothic horror like Frankenstein or Dracula.
Three fabulous flyers!
You may even think of this very specific font. But what about Gothic architecture? Now, this was a style of architecture that started in the 12th century in the humble land of Paris, France. The name Gothic was given to this style of architecture by the snobby Italians in the Renaissance. I hate those guys. It was because they thought these buildings were ugly and non-classical, like the Goth tribe. These buildings are such an incredible feat, because remember, this was back in medieval times when people would kill each other with sticks. It was the Catholics who built most of these structures, flexing on the peasants with their religious money. Having a cathedral on your God-given land was kind of like the medieval equivalent of having a Lamborghini in your garage. Gothic architecture has a focus on height and opulence. The height because it symbolized getting closer to God, and the opulence because it was just really cool. Even though the tall spires of Gothic architecture look impractical, they are. There was a lot of genius that went into building them. Many of these structures are still completely intact because of the superior building techniques used. Pointed archways, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses. 3 techniques that were used in the building of Gothic architecture to give it the support that they needed. Pointed archways are these archways, with their sides meeting at a point, hence the name. Very clever, I know. Round archways were the equivalent used in the previous Roman and Romanesque architecture. You can see a clever name here too. Take a look at the aqueducts in Rome. I mean, those are just round archways put next to each other in a line. Now, sometimes you'll hear pointed archways being referred to as Gothic archways, despite the fact that they were actually originally used in medieval Islamic architecture. The reason these archways work so well is because they focus the weight away from the walls. This makes it so the walls can be thinner, and you get some nice bonus interior space to your cathedral. In the Basilica of St. Denis in France, you can see these pointed archways used all along the sides of the building. Ribbed vaults are these X-looking things on the ceilings of Gothic buildings. In order to understand ribbed vaults, you gotta understand the other 2 kinds of vaults at the time. You got barrel vaults and groin vaults. You can stop giggling. As an example, see the Sistine Chapel. It's just this one long archway all across the building. Now, a groin vault is made up of intersecting barrel vaults. This gives you the cross shape. So a groin vault is an upgraded version of the barrel vault, and the rib vault is an upgraded version of the groin vault. It's made by covering the cross shape of the groin vault in these arched ribs. And the rib vaults add this extra support that the buildings need to not fall over. Notre Dame in Paris has an incredible 6-part rib vault that is 35 meters up in the air. Amiens Cathedral has a 4-part rib vault, which I would say is more common. Flying buttresses, contrary to their name, were fixed in place and could not fly away. These are basically just arms that prop up the building so it doesn't fall over. One of my favorites, Cologne Cathedral, has amazing flying buttresses all along the sides. More than just simply functional, Gothic cathedrals are incredibly beautiful. Personal favorite part of Gothic cathedrals for me is the stained glass windows. Apart from being ornate and detailed, these windows let in a lot of natural light. The best example of this is Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. The building has 1,113 stained glass windows in it. Speaking of Sainte-Chapelle, we have to talk about the rose window. Rose windows are used all across Gothic architecture. They're these circular windows with a flower-like pattern. The rose window in Sainte-Chapelle is called the Rose of the Apocalypse, which is gnarly. This depicts the apocalypse, the end of the world, and isn't that what you want to be thinking about on your Sunday evening? Tracery is the technique of just slapping stone ribs into the walls of the structure. This just gives it some fun extra depth and detail. Let's take a look at Bourges Cathedral. Now this is one of my favorite cathedrals ever. Like, this is nice, right? At the door, we've got a beautiful pointed archway with some nice tracery accenting it. You can peek just above the door and you'll see a nice little baby rose window. And if you look even higher, we've got a nice, big, real, serious man's rose window. Come along to the other side with me and look at these amazing flying buttresses. Just rows and rows of them. And in between each one, we've got lots of windows. Oh, and bonus marks for the nice lawn. Alright, now just follow me inside. This part's cool. So all along the side here, we've got some nice pointed archways. And if you look up, would you look at that? Ribbed vault. Take an even closer look, you'll see all the carvings. Well, look at these little guys. This is a big one for me. Look at the stained glass windows. Oh, give me chills. I don't do anything. Now, would you look at that? Gothic Cathedral is Gothic approved. Our checklist is complete. But, more importantly, it's Christian approved. You're welcome. Tragically, Gothic architecture was never meant to stay. And in the 15th century, it began to be replaced by Renaissance architecture. And while the Renaissance was a time of intellect and artistic endeavors, not much can compare to these grand cathedrals. What's worse than the Renaissance, though, is the modern equivalent. The concrete cube that looks like the first house you built in Minecraft creative mode as a kid. Modern architecture is the bane of my existence. I suppose I am the Renaissance snob of today. But there is good news. Revival Gothic is bringing back the dead, buried corpse of Gothic architecture into the modern day. You got stuff like St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, Russell City Museum. This is really cool. Vienna City Hall. Now just look at that tall spire. Well, since I've gotten in the mood now, I'm gonna go back to reading some good Gothic horror. Boy, am I excited for this.
Ah, that's one. One bat.
Two bats.
Two bats. Three.
Bats.
Three fabulous flyers.